to this chat. You know, I've I'm an optimist, and so many people have told me that. I didn't realize that until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and people said, "Yeah, I'm an optimist. What is good?" And I usually say, waking up is great for me. I'm a morning person, and so for me, kicking off the day is one of the best parts of the day, starting off, and life for me has been similar to that. I love what how I came into the world, love Leeds, love England, love sport. Everything was so good. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was an amazing experience for me. The reason it was so amazing is I started my career doing my dream. I was lucky enough. I left school at 16. So in the UK, when we get into football, into soccer, we kick off early. So at 16, I left school, which was a challenging enough decision in itself. More for my parents than for me. For me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Um, but the beauty was I finished my exams on the Thursday, and the following Monday I was with the professional athletes. I was in the team. I was doing pre-season, so there was a lot of vomiting, I'll admit, as they flogged us hard. But that idea of waking up every day, getting out on the field, mixing with, generally mixing with other guys, other men, um, and doing something I love, doing a great sport. It was such a wonderful experience for me. You know, it's a great question, and it's one I look back at many times, and I can pick these different things. But honestly, the biggest thing that I learned was the sense of team and the importance of my role within that team. And so since then, I've nearly always, all my analogies when people have worked with me over my years in banking, everything comes down to sport. And it's always been, you can't do it by yourself. You need this sense of team, and what's your role within that team, and how can you own that role in that cog? You have the strategy, you have that long goal, you break it down into processes, into steps, and all of those things, and then ultimately it comes down to, and what's my role, and how can I provide value to that team and keep it moving forward. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. in I guess as I listen to that, I think of it in two parts. One is what did I see as a change in, maybe three, the banking environment, and secondly was the change in organisations that I worked in as part of that. I think if I start with what changed in banking and what did I learn there, the innovation or the transformation of digital, without doubt, was one of the biggest shifts in banking. Now, the way I see it is the banks themselves were not necessarily the ones who were the innovators, but what changed was the environment and the platforms that we sat on. So the iPhone, or the phone, the mobile phone, but it was essentially the iPhone came out, and that changed the way that people would access that staple banking service. And suddenly it was like, oh, I want to go on my phone, I want to use the internet banking, I want to use mobile banking. These things came through. What I saw internally then from the organisations I was part of was, right, well, we need to react to that. We need to change that. We need to try and move our service that is essentially the same products of storing value, delivering value, moving it around, and provision of credit, and we need to move that into a completely new channel, a new environment. And I think 20, 25 years later, we're still struggling to to get onto that new channel, into that new environment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, the two, two things: fear and fear of failure. A lot of that is driven then by time in leadership and time in position. So from a people perspective, the bit I found most fascinating, as as I've been able to work across different markets, is the amount of time it takes for senior executives in the large banks to get to that position of authority. If I've spent 15 years, 20 years of my career trying to get to the top, once I'm at the top, if you're then telling me, okay, everything you learned to get here is no longer relevant, the branch, maybe even telephone, forget that, you now need to go and do this new thing over there. It's like, well, I've learned this trade for 15 years, I'm now earning the big bucks, and you want me to make a shift to something else, then maybe my journey is going to stop here. And so what I have found from the people side of that transformation is, whilst it has to start from the top, there's often this level of fear from the senior executive circle, community, where they've been there a long time, they've built this fiefdom, is to let that go and accept that banking moving forward is in a different guise and a different structure. And I've often found that has been the biggest hurdle to overcome. Mm. Yes. Yeah. Mm. Mhm. Yeah, and again, great question, and you know, boiling down to how do you tackle imposter syndrome into this banking context, from or from this change concept, I think in general, for me, the way that I've tackled it is definitely through a sense of humility. And what I think is important is to try and understand what it is that you are good at doing. What is the value that you can bring, and then learn how to translate that into that new environment, or into this new context. So for me, it's been very much a case of thinking, well, where have I had past successes? What is it that I've done in that particular situation? And how can I then pick that up and move it into this new environment? Now, as I said, everything comes down to sport for me, and it's one of those things that is this ability to learn, or adaptive learning, ability to learn quickly, and building a confidence that, well, if I can do it in this play or in this position on the field, when I start to recognize those same patterns in another play or another part of the field or another game, it then gives me the confidence to be able to move forward. Yes. Mm. Mm. Yeah. 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 Yes, I have, and it's not been necessarily an easy path to make the decision, but the point of making a decision became effortless. The point of the decision became, this is what I need to be doing now, and it continues to energize me. And so, through my own lived experience, or through my lived experience as a professional soccer player, moving into, like you say, into banking, as I look back at it, it was almost a logical step. It was a logical place for me to go as I left professional sports, and for me, I just did it. I got on with it. Hard times, found the good bits. It was a chance meeting at a masters tournament. I've said previously, but that chance meeting at a masters tournament really ignited for me this flame to go and better understand what was happening. And that was meeting a former professional athlete who I admired as a player at the time. And when I asked him, it's been 10, 15 years since we retired, how's it going? And he told me it wasn't going good for him. His role wasn't good. He was driving a truck for his friend that he didn't enjoy, and he lived for these special moments as a player at Masters tournaments. And that got me curious. And I put on my investigative hat. The curiosity just took me through speaking to one person after another, to ask how did they transition from their sporting career, from track, field, pool, court, field. It was really just getting an understanding of what did they go through. And the more I learned, the more I started to feel that I could do something about that change. And I felt, given my experiences, perhaps I could do it differently. I could answer the question in a different way, and that's what really then inspired me, indeed energized me to make the leap and build Second Wind as a platform. Yeah. Beautiful question. And that has been, I guess, trying to get to an answer towards that has been what has fueled me in this transition. There's no one silver bullet, there's no one thing that causes that financial and lifestyle disruption to elite athletes at the end of the game. One of the key reasons that happens is poor planning. And that poor planning comes down to asking those questions on, well, what is it that you want your life to be like after you finish this sporting career? And one of the reasons that question is well, if it's asked, the reason why it's very rarely answered is, don't ruin my dream. I'm living in this moment right now. I'm less than one, I'm 0.1 in a million of individuals who are getting to experience this high of winning an Olympic gold medal, of playing pro basketball, or whatever. This is my moment. It might only last a year, it might last 3, if I'm lucky it's 10, but don't ruin it by asking me what am I going to do at the end of my dream. And because of that, so many athletes don't get that plan. They don't get to think beyond living in exactly what they're doing right now. Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting way of asking the question. What's been the biggest challenge or struggle for me as I've gone through this journey? Um, you know, one of one of my traits, as many have told me, and probably annoys my wife to no end, is my sense of optimism that I bring to what I bring to what I do. And I think I think therefore it's difficult for me to say what has there been a continuous challenge or struggle that has gone through that, mainly because I think with what I love doing, I'm comfortable finding a way. I'm comfortable recognizing that I will find how my role plays within this broader ecosystem and this broader team. So I think the challenging bit for me at the moment is, or has been, pushing when people don't want my help, right? So in banking, I remember certainly when I was global head of mortgage at HSBC, and my role was essentially to go and figure out why is HSBC in mortgages across all of these different countries? What's the thing that pulls it together, that ties it together? And I would go into markets, I would sit down and pull together round tables of of our team of externals, which was something new at the time to do that. And I would say, hey, I'm asking these questions to build things out, and they'd be like, well, we don't need that. We just sell mortgages. We just put the rate and we push it, and that's basically what we do. And that was really hard for me to deal with along this view of, but you're not solving the problem of the people you're trying to solve. You're limiting how far you can get. You'll probably get more success if we work together. And getting back on the plane or leaving that door, that's always been something difficult for me to deal with, because I'm not that a forceful player. I'm team. Let's do this together. If you do that bit well, I can do this, and we can all win. So it's really challenging for me to be in that situation, and I face that today when I speak to not necessarily the athletes, but certainly the clubs associations, when they're like, no, we don't need help, they're fine. We have this catch-all. Some of them will fall through, but we'll be okay. And it's, yeah, but if we work together, we could probably do something even better. And, so that's the challenge. it's I really like the process or the steps that you walk through there. I'm a process guy at heart, and I love the way that you've broken that down. For me, coaching or indeed guidance, being the guide, guiding someone through that journey, is one of the most important roles that I see in a transformation. And I know you've spoken about it before, the importance of being a guide, supporting the hero, that sense of humility. I say humility whereby this is not the me show right now. This is about that individual, that company, that firm trying to meet their goals, and doing this together or supporting them to do that is probably going to get a better result. And I think opening them up to that guidance, opening them up to that perspective, that brought either through experience, through logic, whatever that stance is, what that anchor is, I think is one of the most important aspects in driving that transformation, driving people forward. Yeah, the the approach that I take, the approach that I'm bringing right now is empathy, and I do it in the team I was with at Westpac. It's one of the largest and oldest banks in Australia. Is through empathy mapping, is sitting down and speaking with customers, speaking with individuals, customers or not, I shouldn't even say that, but just speaking with the types of people who we think we can help, who we think we can support, and asking them what they're doing. Get an understanding of their life, get an understanding of what they're trying to do and what some of their broader struggles are. And then it's a case of understanding, well, this is where I can play. Can I do it by myself? Do I need partners, strategic partners or others? Or is this something that I do and I deliver? And that for me is the starting place, because otherwise you're assuming, you're making these assumptions, and as you move down that transformation or move down that path of change, that will fall out at some point. It'll be, oh, that bit's wrong because I assumed that's what you wanted. Yes. Mhm. Sure thing. I use Google Maps as my analogy a lot, and that comes down to getting clarity in your destination. So if you can understand where it is that you want to go, finding that clarity, then there are often many routes to get there. And you can then make that decision as to whether you take the toll road, the country road, the scenic route, whatever that might be. So the one thing I'd say is getting the clarity as to who it is that you are trying to serve, who's the people, understand what their problem is. That for me, it starts there, and that starts with a conversation. I would love for you to do that. It's going to be a T. That's it. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Awesome, thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation. People want to reach out, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. It's probably one of a great channel to connect me on, and that's Ryan Gonsalves. Thanks for having me, James.